After North Korean troops were authorized by Russia to fight in the Ukrainian-occupied region of Kursk, the USA has granted Ukraine special privileges to use long-range missiles on targets deeper inside of Russia for the purposes specifically of defending the captured territory. According to the BBC, the move marks a major change in policy for Washington, which has refused for months to agree to Kiev's request for authorization to use the ATACMS missiles outside its own borders. On Sunday, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky reacted to the news, which came via briefings from US officials, saying, "Such things are not announced, missiles speak for themselves." Russian President Vladimir Putin had previously warned Western nations against such a move, saying it would represent the NATO military alliance's direct participation in the Ukraine war. Army Tactical Missile Systems, ATACMS, can reach up to 300 kilometers, 186 miles. Unnamed US officials have told the New York Times and the Washington Post that Biden's approval of Ukraine's use of ATACMS came in response to Russia's decision to allow North Korean soldiers to fight in Ukraine. The line that I found most insightful from that same BBC article, though, was this one. In effect, the Biden administration is telling Ukraine that it will support its efforts to hold onto the small chunk of Russian territory it currently occupies as a powerful bargaining chip for any possible negotiations in the future. Biden is likely trying to shore up Ukraine's position as Donald Trump enters office, as Trump has been very skeptical about the war in Ukraine. The BBC report that there is still division in the Trump camp about how to proceed with Russia. Donald Trump Jr., Trump's son, wrote on social media, "The military-industrial complex seems to want to make sure they get World War III going before my father has a chance to create peace and save lives." Many of Trump's top officials, such as Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, say the US should not provide any more military aid to Ukraine, but others in the next Trump administration hold a different view. National Security Advisor Michael Waltz has argued that the US could accelerate weapons deliveries to Ukraine to force Russia to negotiate. Which way the president-elect will go is unclear, but many in Ukraine fear that he will cut off weapons deliveries, including ATACMS. At the moment, I guess it's a judgment call. Curtis, do you think Trump is likely to escalate, trying to get a concession from Putin, or de-escalate to keep his Kremlin-friendly, let's say, crowd happy?
If you look at 2016, right, and we've talked about Trump's picks last week, right? He has kind of stuck his middle finger up to his MAGA base because, just like 2016, he's employed a cabinet full of neocons and war hawks. Now, of course, there has been this bastardization of the Trump campaign, namely by J.D. Vance when he went on Joe Rogan's podcast that, oh, Trump is this anti-war guy. This is going to be an anti-war administration. It's bullshit. Could not be further from the truth. A lot of MAGA supporters, a lot of Trump supporters think that Trump is going to end the wars. You heard it in that rhetoric then. Oh, Biden's trying to create World War III. We're going to come in and fix it. Again, it's a load of shit. Trump is extremely hawkish. His first administration was very, very neoconservative. When it comes to the drone strikes, those of us on the left heavily criticized Obama for his drone strikes. He was a terribly hawkish president too. Well, Trump increased the levels of drone strikes in his first couple of years as president way more than the total of Obama. Trump also ripped up the Iran nuclear deal, which it was a deal between the US and Iran where they gave up their nuclear weapons. That was done under Obama. That was a good policy. Trump ripped that up. When it comes to Israel-Palestine, we all know his position on that. He's extremely, extremely pro-Israel. Like, he wants to glass Gaza. In fact, he decided to declare that the capital of Israel was going to be Jerusalem. I mean, that in itself increases tensions. This guy, regardless of his rhetoric, loves war, and his cabinet loves war. Now, there is obviously a couple of hardcore MAGA people who are absolutely Putin stooges, by the way, and not just people within the administration or the to-be administration. There's been a lot of right-wing media figureheads that have been exposed as taking Russian money, namely Tim Pool. There's some people in that administration who will kind of want to sort of cozy up to Putin, but it's hard to say what the fallout from this is going to be. What we do know is that Trump isn't going to ensue for peace or anything like that. I know there's a couple of people in his cabinet who absolutely desperately want to destroy or defeat Russia, not destroy, but defeat Russia. So I think Trump is stuck a middle finger up to his supporters. He's not going to sue for peace. But where is he going to fall? I'm really not sure. I mean, he's spoken in favor of Putin before, as he has done with many other dictators. I know Putin is elected, but elected with what, 90% of the vote. So your guess is as good as mine. I think historically we need to use these indicators, and historically, if you look at 2016 to 2020, Trump has been incredibly hawkish.
Chapter 10 of Agenda 47, which was Trump's platform that he ran on, was literally called "Return to Peace Through Strength." Right. So even when he's talking about peace, he's talking about
That's it, a
using
very
the
classic
military.
fascist talking point as well.
Yeah, it is big time. Big time.
Mm.
It's like, we will return to peace through strength by just overwhelming our opponents. Like, peace for them is winning the war, right? That's what it is like being on top. Peace isn't like coming to an agreement with your partner nations
Mm.
could all work towards human rights. Peace for them is, we are the biggest and the strongest, so nobody dare challenge us. I feel like that is a commitment which sets up situations that escalate. Right? It was the whole theory behind the great power struggle before World War One. The idea that you have Russia and Austro-Hungary Germany and Austro-Hungary and Britain and France, and they're two such ginormous global powers that they would never go to war because it would be ridiculous for them to go to war. And lo and behold, they did go to war. Um, Slightly flipping the script though, um, what about what Biden's thinking right now? Because do we take Putin's threat that he's considering this as NATO involvement seriously? And if so, is Biden taking them less seriously because he knows that Putin's probably just thinking, well, I just have to wait for us to get our man on the inside, wait for the Trump presidency, and then I can sweet talk Trump, or I can use my leverage over Trump, and try and get leverage, and try and sort things out so it's a much better situation for me. It doesn't really matter what Biden does right now, and Biden's kind of knowing this, knowing going into this. Oh yeah, I think there was a story. Someone in chat will correct me. I think there was a story of Russia leaking explicit photos of Melania Trump as well. And I think that was a sort of it was, I think it was more or less as soon as Trump was elected, leaked explicit photos of Melania Trump. Um, and I think that may well have been we've got, we know stuff. But I don't know what you think about that. But let's focus on what's Biden thinking here.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak about those pictures. I've not heard about that story, but very interesting if it's got some legs. I mean, is this a political calculation from Biden? Is he doing this from a personal sort of legacy thing? I don't know. If he is, there's no point because his legacy is absolutely tarnished. But Putin is always going to say, "Well, this is going to be NATO increasing tensions." He's going to say that, which, to be fair, he is kind of right. I mean, the US is increasing the tensions with these long range missiles, and yeah, it's gone against the long held policy of Biden in the US, which is that, look, Ukraine needs to defend themselves. The West will supply aids, arms, but there was a ban on this type of weaponry. And look, I mean, this might annoy some of our viewers, but I'm okay with the idea of aid and weapons being sent over. I'm not comfortable. I mean, I don't like weapons being sent anywhere, especially when you think about the global arms race. But of course, at the end of the day, Russia is the aggressor here. They invaded Ukraine. Now, it is an escalation. And does the end justify the means? I guess it depends on whether this is actually going to help. I mean, Putin accusing the US of escalation, he is kind of right about that. But again, Putin was the one who invaded in the first place. My worry is how this would affect things at a larger scale. My worry is how many civilians would be injured or killed. And I think the lens in which Biden and the West views this is, we've got to win regardless. Ukraine has got to defeat Russia. Now, look, it doesn't make you a Putin sympathizer or a puppet to acknowledge that Ukraine and Russia don't exist in isolation. You have to think about the wider region. You have to think about every action causes a reaction, and the more involved, the more dangerous the entire world becomes. And look, we don't want another world war. You have to allow Russia and Ukraine to fight. Help them without them becoming too involved. I mean, some argue from a non-interventionist perspective that even sending aid into Ukraine is wrong. Okay, I think that's a discussion to be had. But we're not in control of who wins the war. But we are in control of trying to contain warfare and not allowing it to spread across the world and escalate the conflict. So I'm unsure whether Biden is making a political calculation or if it's like a last hurrah because he knows that Trump may cozy up to Putin. But again, as I was just saying before, he has forces inside his cabinet who are, let's be honest, absolutely Russian's puppet. And you've got massive neocons who are very much, we will stand with the West. So I don't really know. Now, I do know there is one clear winner, and that is Lockheed Martin. At least they get to profit from the war because Lockheed Martin supplied the ATA CMS, it's quite hard to say actually, the weaponry. So at least the war profiteers will be okay.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.